Hello, everyone. You're listening to Truthcatradio at truthcatradio.com. I'm your host, Richard Kary, and this is Beyond the Matrix. The current time is now 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast, USA. And tonight I'd like to catch up on just a lot of the recent events and the way a lot of the spinnings have been going in the corporate media. Just first, I would like to mention that, well, as always, our operations are completely maintained by you, the listeners. And here at Truth Cat Radio, we strictly stay away from any sort of monetizing, corporate advertising. It's all completely listener supported. And so if you can, please do help out and support the station. There is a support page at our station website, truthcatradio.com. If you go to the support page, we have a nice connection with PayPal, a very quick and secure way to donate. If you do have anything to spare, occasionally, any little bit does help, but don't worry about what the amount is, because we understand, everyone has bills to pay out there as well, and we sometimes are helped out a lot, and it can make all the difference, a handful of contributions from a month from just some small oddball amount that someone had left lying around after they took care of their weekly expenses. And please, in addition to supporting us financially, we use Facebook for most of our advertising and promotion for our shows, hosts, and our guests. And we would appreciate all those shares and all those likes on Facebook, and it does help. Just to get more people talking about and tuning in to the information. Rather important and hard to come by information, that a lot of our people are willing to speak out about. So please like our pages for Truth Cat Radio and Beyond the Matrix. There's a Truth Cat. And then, of course, the group. We have a group, Truth Cats. A lot of people seem to like. It's been a pretty great community. It's been growing, and we share a lot of great information, articles, opinions, and of course, let you know about all the great hosts and guests we have on here at Truth Cat Radio. So today, I titled the topic "War, Debt, and Israel," because I don't know. I think I may have to make an amendment to the whole proverb about death and taxes. Because it does seem that, war, debt, and Israel are the things that we never seem to break away from, in the struggles that we have throughout humanity here. The news has us, of course, with a lot of angles toward hating anything that goes against the financial agendas of the West. This is not what they'll tell you, but everything's anti-Russian right now. If you accidentally stub your toe on the way to work, chances are Russia planted something there. This is the attitude, and of course it's starting to become, I think, obvious to more and more people. As this whole narrative internationally starts to break down, more and more countries are seeing that financially it's been far more a hardship on them than Russia with any sort of sanctions, boycotts of any sort. So, I mean, a lot of people are wanting to reconsider, and the UN and the US, particularly with all of this anti-Russian propaganda, is starting to shoot itself in the foot based on fruitless, downward spiraling consequences. but yeah, we are seeing just a lot of ramping up. Of course, China is continuing to be discussed as well a lot. We have, of course, the situation with South Korea. It seems that he's not doing what we would like on behalf of U.S. puppet rulers around the world, and so yeah, we would like someone who's a little more warlike toward North Korea, because this isn't going to fly as well. So yeah, we've just had a lot of tensions internationally that have been just getting recruited for, or we've had a lot of attempts to sell people on what we can see up on the horizon, and I don't know how much of it looks all that good at the moment. Perhaps we can steer energy into a more favorable direction. But it seems Russian has summoned the Israeli ambassador over Israel's incursions into Syria with warplanes. Now that is a good thing, I mean, for Russia to be standing up, I mean, just as it represents an opposition to globalism, I mean, Russia is standing up to Israel as bullying and just ridiculous, reckless, childish behavior, basically, in that part of that region of the globe. But yeah, it seems that Russia has summoned the Israeli ambassador, and this has been over the incursions into Syria with warplanes on Israel's part. In at least one case, a ballistic missile was fired into Syria from Israel. So there had been recent events to justify this on Russia's part. Evidently, this is due to Syrians actually defending themselves, and daring to shoot back at Israeli warplanes, which have been unjustifiably bombing the Syrian country. We have this ridiculous situation now with Israel openly supporting all of the people that we were supposed to be against, basically. And trying to do a complete 180 in a classic Orwellian style. So Syria's ambassador to the United Nations has basically said that Russia is sending a message to Israel. The rules have changed. Okay? Israel is no longer allowed to act in Syrian skies. Period. End of discussion. Now, Israel could very well go into Syria and wait for Russia to attack them. That's basically what I'm concerned and seeing as a potential. I mean, they would love for nothing more than the U.S. and Russia to get into a war that further enables the goal of greater Israel in the Middle East. I mean, for Syria to be just completely, sliced up for the taking, basically, would of course leave Israel to their prized Golan Heights they want to steal and have been occupying currently, for one, and secondly, of course, they just don't deal well with competition as a peoples. Through deception thou shalt conquer is, of course, the motto of the Mossad, and that, of course, is a rather elite fighting force Israeli defense, and defense is really not as accurate to put it as offensive in nature, but We've had a lot of interesting analyses and very strong frustrations as Netanyahu has been reacting to the the support for Syria we've had from Russia and from Iran. Of course, their arch enemy, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, isn't just now facing all of the corruption scandals that he's already had on the table to deal with and facing re-election in light of that, but now he's failed to expand or secure, as it were, Israel's foothold in Syria. And for him, of course, this is, this is not good. Israel must be ever expanding in his mind, in his eye, But yeah, we've had a very great support for Syria, at least from some countries, namely Russia and Iran. The Israeli media has been excessively touting for the moderate rebels, these so-called moderate rebels, and ISIS, just openly saying, hey, no, ISIS needs to be on our side now. And the justification for this is all about demonizing Iran in the Israeli media. It's very interesting. I mean, they're even using the word carved up themselves with reference to Syria. In this Israeli press article here, Islamic State's wane sets the stage for regional superpower Iran. They're saying the country once known as Syria is being carved up, and Tehran and its terrorist proxies are in a position to benefit more than any other player. So, yeah, they're seeing this as, just a perfect way for Iran to just, take over the entire Middle East like some sort of conquistador, spreading terror and destroying Israel. This is what they would have. I mean, I don't know. Do the average Israelis even believe this from their government? That Iran is this sort of a threat? I mean, they live so close to Iran. It's hard to believe the average person could even believe this rhetoric in Israel, for that matter, of the Israelis. But yeah, this is what the Israeli government is saying. I mean, so they're straight out using carved up themselves, and of course, trying to say that would be a goal for the Iranians, for Iran. But if they clearly would be more a goal for Israel. I mean, if any one country is known for loving to carve up parts of the Middle East for their own taking, it would be Israel. And of course, as I already mentioned, Syria's Golan Heights are the most recent and most affected example in how this plays out in upcoming weeks or months here. But Syria's Golan Heights, at least a good portion of them, the western 2/3 of them, are currently occupied and administered by Israel as it is right now. Of course, so Israel would have you. I mean, they would not use the word occupied. They'd say, "Oh, we've liberated, this. So we can't let those gosh darn Syrian people run their own land." No, that would be horrible. They're savages. Come on. They're not. They're not Jews. What? Forget about it, right? So, but for the last 6 years, Israel had tried to pretend that it had, no stake in this. No concern over how any of this plays out. And it's clearly not the case. They clearly were all too eager, and once they saw an opportunity like this to play their cards. They've bombed Syria repeatedly. Of course, they're claiming it's to stop Hezbollah, which they claim are evil. I think I've discussed Hezbollah on my show, I believe this past autumn, and they're really not evil at all. They are actually a force of good in the region. I believe that Haitham from Palestine, when I had him on my show, we were speaking about Hezbollah. If you check that out in the archives, you could hear what he has to say about that freedom fighting, basically, group. And then we've had Israel now openly supporting Al Qaeda in Syria, because that any enemy of their enemy is their friend, basically. I mean, that just goes without saying. But yeah, this is just so Orwellian, the way we're getting both from the U.S. and Israel now. It's complete 180-degree turn. It's getting more and more blatant on, siding with ISIS and Al Qaeda at this point. And of course, Russia points these things out at international conferences, various ways publicly, and it just gets ignored, because what can the Western media say about it? They can't really confront being called out in these ways. They can simply ignore and pretend that the statements were never said, and that's what we have Netanyahu and the Israeli government evidently doing it with regard to Putin at the moment. Now, this is getting very dangerous, people. Israel is trying to poke their hands into the matter, or their nose into the matter, as it were, to try to ramp up some serious conflict between, ultimately, the U.S. and Russia. And that, of course, would only be good for Israel. Like so much of what we get involved in wars, particularly in the Middle East, for the benefit of these third parties. And of course, in this case, it's just so obvious. I don't know how perhaps many of the past events that led up to wars, by the people who were keeping score and up until that moment when they were triggered, could have this same impression. Maybe they are always pretty obvious attempts at propaganda to get things sparked. It's really more in the aftermath that they try to cover up the history and twist it into lies to suit their agendas, the agendas of whoever is the victor. But it does remain clear that the one who would benefit the most from a carved up Syria in flames and rubble would be Israel. They would like nothing more than that. And so they're playing this angle now to say that Iran is tyrannical and would squash Israel and wants to destroy Israel, and that if Assad does not leave power, then that's just going to strengthen Iran. The presence of a strong Syria with Assad. Well, I mean, in that they're all for good and the decency of humanity, they are a threat to Israel in that sense. So I guess in that sense, it's not incorrect. But yeah, Israel is a plague to humanity. They really are, and more people need to speak out against the ridiculous lies and propaganda that we're being told in the West here, and everyone's so afraid to, especially when it comes to the Jews or Israel, to speak out against any of these things. So, I mean, yeah, we would have Assad fall, Syria go up in flames, Israel taking permanent ownership of the Golan, and would likely snag a few extra slices of Syria in the proceeds, a little. They always want a little extra buffer zone, quote unquote, that little extra, if they like to call a buffer zone, just to get a little more land still in any situation. And of course, there's always so much sympathy to be had for poor little Israel, yeah. The warmonger to be loved. I don't understand how they think they can generate this sort of sympathy from the world stage at this point. But yeah, so they would carve up as much as possible if Syria fell into just a hellhole of war-torn aftermath. And well, there probably wouldn't be any objections from the international community, just like usual when Israel commits an atrocity or some sort of injustice. So mission accomplished for Israel once again. That would be the case. But I mean, it's just all about this hate. I mean, Israel has for Iran, and I don't know. I really think it's just to get competition out of the way. I really don't think they so much hate them as they hate strong competition in their own neighborhood, and they're jealous of the fact that Iran has such a rich ancient history. You can't walk 5 feet in Iran without stumbling over, some potential archaeology that is to be discovered. Israel, of course, they have all these claims from their Old Testament of having been in that land for so long, but there's no evidence that equates. And in the surrounding areas, that's why they really hate the ancient histories of their neighbors. They're so jealous of it. It's not fabricated, and they can't compete with that, obviously, because all of their history is fabricated and twisted and stolen from other religions. But anyone who thinks that Israel is rooting for a peaceful, stable Syria is insane. Netanyahu is hoping for just the most war-torn Syria as possible in the aftermath of all of this. But it really is ridiculous. And we have, especially someone as naive as Trump has been toward Israel in the U.S.'s White House at the moment, it's very dangerous, because he'll play into Israel's hands all too easily. I don't know if he'll wise up to what they really are like soon enough. He's got 4, at most 8 years here, and it could take a bit of time. Seems he's been very conditioned to think of them in the way that corporate media has always propagated us to think of Israel. So I don't know. This is not looking very, very good in terms of potential conflict, furthering of a conflict. But Russia has remained rather, strong in their stance, which is a good thing. I think it's necessary, no matter what happens as a result. This is necessary. People need to start standing up to Israel, is what it comes down to. Because we've had too many wars that they've affected as it is, and the amount of times even that they've, gone against this country, the U.S., and yet we've still continued to. The time when George Bush was in presidency, we had a signing now that ties us to defend Israel in any conflict, even if they start the conflict. Even if they're completely in the wrong and they start the conflict. Now, we are on paper, technically obligated to fight for Israel. So this is the great danger now with these ultimatums between Putin and Netanyahu that are emerging so we can't really say what will come of this, but it is definitely something that needed to happen. I very much applaud Putin on this matter. But just to recap on what I was mentioning of the recent developing events between Israel and Syria. We've had for a while now a gradual increase in incidents leading up to Russia summoning the Israeli ambassador over Israel's incursions into Syria with warplanes. At least one case of ballistic missile was fired into Syria from Israel. And so this is now due to the Syrians actually, being willing to defend themselves, something that Israel is acting like they can't tolerate. Oh, what? We're going over there and shooting these Syrians, and they're shooting back at us. Come on, you got to do something about that right now. You don't shoot at Israel, no matter what they do. What? Forget about it here. So this is their attitude. But yes, Syria's ambassador has, very much said that this is not going to stay the same. He's very strongly, as I've said, he's stated the rules have changed, and Israel is no longer allowed to act in Syrian skies. This is the message being sent from Russia to Israel. So we're going to have to see, what happens next. I mean, if Israel were under smart leadership, this would be the time to back off. But they're not the type to do that. They're, especially with someone like Netanyahu, who's still in a controlling, influential position. He's not a very sane choice if you want to avoid war for any nation, basically. But him being the PM is as bad as it can get, basically, for the potential of this ramping up to a hot war. I mean, Israel could very well go into Syria and wait for Russia to attack them. Russia, I believe, fully would back up their claim. The United States, therefore, having already committed to protecting Israel in any conflict, even if Israel starts it, could then very likely head on in and very easily find itself in this war with Russia. So, we'll have to see. And of course, just the amount that the Israeli media is demonizing Iran. And then we have the demonizing of Russia over here in the U.S. to complement. So, it's I don't know. It's quite a pair, really. The U.S. and Israeli media right now on these matters. But we've seen a lot of these hoax incidents recently regarding sorry, folks, regarding anti-Semitism. And we were wondering, well, what is Israel going to do next? This is usually about the time that they would let loose on Gaza again, or commit some more atrocities, and then, well, maybe this underhandedness is part of it. I mean, them trying to do what they can to further the situation in Syria and allow it to further degrade into war. We have a very interesting response. The response we would need from more countries in the future, from Putin. And I don't know, the more they try to depict him as evil, the more I really see him as quite the opposite, I must say. He's standing up against so many things for his people, whether it's nationalism, against GMOs, the dangers of vaccines, and just the nationalism and anti-globalism in general, and standing up now to Israel and these tendencies toward occupation of governments, puppet regimes that the U.S. and the West and Israel tend to have such an inclination towards, such an addiction to, really. So he's really been a role model. And well, as far as these incidents, these anti-Semitic incidents recently, we had the one recent incident in upstate New York. Now, he had getting all this media attention. He had painted these swastikas. Talking about how people had painted these swastikas and desecrated his house, saying that he was going to leave these swastikas on his home. Him, of course, being a Jewish person, and claiming, he'll leave the swastikas on his home to send a message out there to remind people of how anti-Semitism is alive and well, and we have to be aware of this and compensate and this and that. And, we had people come out and critique just by looking at past events and, how often these turn out to be hoaxes. And this was speculated in advance on. We had people completely defamed and denounced and shamed who suggested that this could be a hoax, and as it has turned out, this was indeed a Jewish man who put the swastikas on his own home. Once again, a confirmed hoax. Now, this was, as I said, in upstate New York. I'm going to butcher this town's name. Schenectady, New York. And the man's name was Andrew King, who painted the swastikas on his home, this Jew who painted the swastikas on his home. Now, he also faces harassment charges in connection with a separate incident where police say he threatened to harm an individual, but that's completely unrelated. But he's now currently being held in Schenectady County Jail and is due to be arraigned. It looks like actually that the arraigning just took place, this past Tuesday, actually. See, he was waiting arraignment up till then, and I'm not sure exactly what the results of that were. But we have had, of course, so many people just jumping on this incident when it first came out, but yeah, this man is in jail now, for having falsely reported vandalism to the police. So that's that's at least one good result that we can look to here. Because of course, especially the Jewish lobby groups were all over this when they heard that swastikas were painted on a Jew's home. Oh my God! Well, we have to do something about this now. You see, this anti-Semitism just keeps spreading, and so of course, yeah, the Anti-Defamation League, the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center. I mean, these kind of organizations were quick to get out some stories. Trying to portray the victimhood of the Jew as much as possible, and this always is something that is really played to the backs, and it is interesting just how often we'll see a lot of these incidents, and then shortly thereafter, some considerable injustice or atrocity on behalf of the rogue terrorist state of Israel. So, I don't know. I have to wonder just how many times and which incidents are actually in the minds of those who are trying to present a cover of sympathy. We have a huge problem financially, though, and war seems to be the only thing that the leaders of this country are willing to go toward. I mean, it's been apparent again and again throughout history that whenever we have a situation where we're in or about to have a furthering from a depression, this is a depression that we've been in since 2008. It's possibly now deepening at the moment, but just the amount of people around Trump who are determined to go to war, and this opening that Israel's giving us with Russia is the sort of thing that can be all too easily played to Trump. I mean, there's a lot of speculation now that he's even getting sold on this idea that, the only thing he can do for this country is allow them to continue pushing us to war because just the financial state of the country. I really don't agree with that, but, I have the attitude that the country should fall, just like the former Soviet Union, as the government is already tearing itself apart internally here. We see all this childish bickering in Congress. It's just getting up to heights like never before. And it really seems clear that this is a failed democracy at this point. We don't have to, we don't have to do anything that harms us in it. You have to remember that, bankers and politicians will be harmed by the collapse of a government, but not the people. The people, if anything, will just be able to start building true wealth again and become more prosperous in the local level right off the bat. But we, as far as where even Trump would wind up taking us with the sort of perception he seems to have, as I said, he has so many people who seem to be pro-Israel, and just so many people who are pro-war who seem to be still influencing him. These terrorist sort of fears and, well, just the sort of war on terror agenda, is something that I don't think Trump fully sees through. I think he still buys into some of that. And so, I don't know, this whole situation in Syria and just expanding once again situation a bit in Iraq that we have now is not really something that we're going to be able to easily get away from. And now, of course, we have this situation with I mean, I know the current leader of South Korea is completely for unification. You know, a sunshine policy, they call it. That's his term for just wanting to unify with North Korea once again. And, well, war over there is a goal. And, well, I mean, China has very much an investment in the outcome as well regarding those territories. I mean, the sovereignty issue is very much a part of a lot of these. You know, people having the right to self-govern. And then, of course, there are also currency wars. You know, I mean, the Russian ruble, Chinese yuan, these are major threats to the U.S. and the U.S. power structure throughout the world. And then, of course, we have, the ongoing situation with Ukraine. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any chance of them not ultimately breaking off because the government doesn't seem to be sustaining itself very well there. But we're already spreading ourselves so thin here, and it seems that without these wars, you know, the government has nothing to blame everything that we have to tolerate with. You know, we go outside and we see, you know, broken roads, shops that are closed down, you know, people in more and more areas who are looking for spare change. And it's, you know, we see more and more signs of a lot of our infrastructure being sent more into disrepair, as a lot of these corporations and bankers and financial bubbles continue to make off with a lot of the real wealth. And of course, war is the greatest justification for the stealing of the nation's wealth. Now we have this tool of immigration. It's being used so widely throughout the entire Western world. They're very focused on the Western world, of course. And well, there's not really a strong force other than what we hear coming from Russia that is standing up against a lot of this. And he really sees the connections. Putin sees the connections with the immigration, with nationalism, with globalism. But I mean, a lot of what we get from the media tries to spin all these things as completely compartmentalized, you know, so that you can have the view that they want you to have of any given issue without any other issues and how things affect each other getting in the way. You know, they don't want a little annoying thing like logic to get in the way of their agendas with how the system wants you to think of these things. So, yeah, that things are always presented in a very compartmentalized fashion, you know, that no perception of any one thing or action or judgment affects any other's actions or judgments. So everything can be in complete independence and perceived just as it is spun. But we know that this is not the case, and we really have to look at how all these things are always related to one another. Now, we've had a very strong message Putin has sent to Netanyahu, but now we're already hearing from Israel that well, it's basically not being acknowledged that it has ever happened, you know, that because I mean Putin had said that the potential for Israel to act freely over Syrian skies has ended, and well, Israel's, when questioned about this since then in press conferences, has denied that the statement had ever been made, that Russia had ever said that. So this is going to be their excuse. It looks like that they're going with is that they're going to claim that, oh no, we didn't hear that. Russia didn't want us to be here. Well, no, we didn't hear him say that. What are you talking about? Come on, this is Israel. Of course we can be wherever we want. So yeah, we need to get this information out through more channels. I mean, we need the people to be aware of all these events, because these are the sort of events that really affect a lot of future courses and the directions they take. And in the aftermath, then you don't know too much about what started it in all too many cases. It really sheds more light on, the direction we can take things in the future. I mean, if we can stop the demonizing of Russia, if we can stop the demonizing of Iran, it could go a long way, I think. Of course, we have to stop the demonizing, I think, of anti-globalism. Is a very important factor that I see. I mean, especially, I'm getting a bit older than I had been in the past. I look at people who are the age I used to be, who are growing up now, and I look at how the media spins a lot of these issues, such as immigration, such as trying to see nationalism as something synonymous with hate, as a means to keep people away from learning about local empowerment, and just all of this message on the young people today is very much that, if they're against globalism, then that they're against peace and cooperation and humanity, and they're just some evil, hateful bastard if they're against globalism. It's like you're that uncle that no one likes who comes over and complains about people. They're like him if they're not on board with globalism, kids. So come on, don't be like your grumpy uncle. Get on board with globalism. This is the sort of attitude that we do get in a lot of the culture, though, that winds up imposed upon a lot of the people just entering adulthood, and they don't realize that it's more an aligned tyranny of corporation and government against the people, against the masses, which will keep everyone as much as possible in a state of indentured servitude perpetually, not without any way to get out of it. I mean, we'll have a lot of the left, which is really more far left, that has become center main left these days. But yeah, we'll have a lot of the politics of the left wingers who will be at the top of the front of the line, regarding anti-globalism rhetoric, the sort of associations of it with hate, and well, they'll of course use racism and you're anti-immigrant, as well, and racist if you're anti-globalism, and this and that, and then of course about nationalism as well. So we'll have this from the cultural Marxist propaganda of the left, and we'll have well, this attitude, that you have to have, one extreme or the other. But really, the center is where you're being harmed the most. It's the fusion, I think, because the capitalism hasn't been working as true capitalism for us. If it had, we wouldn't be all quite so poor. And then, of course, we'll always hear socialism defined as fascism from the left. This is how they can keep people away from thinking toward nationalism. Nationalism is really finding, your local people to help defend against global tyranny and empire. And people you have the most in common with, you're going to have the strongest bonds with. That's just natural. And so trying to have local ties and tribes that are, you're looking out for the benefit and wealth and further prospering of their own local peoples, completely internal and not infiltrated from outside, for every part of the globe. Okay, so nationalism is, and socialism can overcome poverty and overcome oppression from the elite few. That is the ultimate goal. But of course, anything that is against the globalist cultural Marxism, well, it'll get labeled as fascism, and they'll use all these cliched references to the past that I'm not even going to address because they're so inaccurate. But I'll hear a lot of cliches that, we've had so many things beaten over our heads, especially about the sort of issues that we try to pass laws to not question. That there's something wrong about the official stories of something, when a law is necessary to keep people from questioning it. That should be a no-brainer right there. But a lot of this globalism is demonized in the pop culture today. Just the kind of just shows and music lyrics and people on reality shows, all that sort of thing. It's the kind of influence in the media, that globalism tends to have. It tries to show anything as an alternative as being filled with hate, an old world closed mind. And the old world has a lot of things that we can learn from, first of all. And the views I've been expressing here are certainly not that of a closed mind. If anything, they're about an open mind and not having oppression from empire of an elite few. But I think that's possibly the biggest issue, behind a lot of these wars. Of course, it's really currency wars. At their foundation, without the private central banks, we didn't have world wars. It wasn't until we had private central banks that we started having world wars. Now, you think about that for a moment, because that really shows what we all are really fighting over. Someone else's profit rather than their competitors. Neither of which are in the best interest of the people as a whole. And so, yes, debt and war and a lot of the propaganda over territory and sovereignty, self-governance, these are all so strongly tied together, and the justification for these constant struggles, the justification of these constant struggles is how we are told to perceive our putting up with these conditions, as being worthwhile. Yes, I mean, maybe our cities and towns are, as I said, in a bit of financial straits and bit of disrepair in our streets, a bit of unemployment in our cities.
You want to take a break? I figured I'd give you a break, but you're probably going to forget what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I'll stop now and break. Okay.
All right, go for it. All right, everybody, just want to remind you, you are listening to Truthcatradio, www.truthcatradio.com, and this is Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary, and immediately following Richard in about an hour, roughly, will be the Stephen D. Kelly Show. And my guest today is going to be one David J. Hance, Chief Operating Officer for Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. Not Sea Shepherd Global, like I've been saying. But anyway, very happy to have him on. And we do want to welcome you here today. We have another new show debuting tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, and that's Attracting Miracles with Greg Downey. I hope you guys will tune in. We're going to hopefully be filling in our Friday schedule here pretty soon, and we'll have a full 5 days of live broadcasting. Fun. All right, I'm not going to go into the whole schedule right now, but I am going to remind everybody that we are 100% listener support, and we do need your support. So please, if you can, drop a couple bucks in PayPal. Every little bit, tiny little bit, helps quite a bit. We are looking forward to doing a big event in Las Vegas, hopefully this year. And when I say big event, that means at a Las Vegas casino where you're going to come in and hopefully hang out for 3 days with us and hear various Truthcat personnel talking, as well as special guests and lots of vendors and all that good stuff. So anyway, we're really looking forward to trying to put that together, and we hope that you guys will plan on being with us when we give you the date. I also want to remind everyone there's a chat room. If you have not been in the chat room, go in there and please register a screen name and say hello. Also, if you want to call in and say anything whatsoever, the phone number is 714-598-3125. If you need to join us via Skype, you want to send a contact request to Stephen D. Kelly. That's Stephen D. Kelly, and the city will be Anaheim. And I'll be standing by. Make sure you say that you want to join the show so I know to connect you. And beyond that, I think that's pretty much the gist of it. But again, we do want to remind you, this is Truthcat Radio. We are 100% listener supported, and we hope you'll stay tuned for sure for the next show. And we're very happy to have you here. Okay, Richard, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. All right, everyone, welcome back, and do support us with whatever you can. We do appreciate and are greatly helped from all donations, and everyone is greatly appreciated when it's received. So once again, this is Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. The current time is 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's East Coast USA, and Stephen D. Kelly with the Stephen D. Kelly Show will be on in 1 hour, so stick around for that. Tonight I've been talking about, just a lot of the recent developments in war, in debt, and in this recent development with Israel related to the conflict in Syria and Russia's backing up the Syrian peoples, along with Iran, of course, who's also been aiding Syria in their struggle. But the Syrian army themselves has definitely come a long way in getting back their territory. But yes, I've been discussing the developments where Russia had summoned the Israeli ambassador over Israel's incursions into Syria with warplanes. And in at least one case, a ballistic missile was fired into Syria from Israel. evidently, the Syrians had been fighting back, um, shooting back at the Israeli jets when they were attacked in those incidents. So then Israel was complaining that their jets were being fired upon as they were sending ballistic missiles into Syria. And ultimately, as things are now, Syria's ambassador to the United Nations has basically said that Russia is sending a message to Israel that the rules have changed and Israel is no longer allowed to act in Syrian skies. Period. End of discussion. Of course, now we're hearing that Israel saying that they received no such message from Russia. And so this is where the potential tension for the future lies. And I've been mentioning how the Israeli press, the Israeli media, has been focusing on demonizing Iran, saying that if Assad doesn't fall and Syria isn't broken up, that will only strengthen Iran even more to have Syria as a strong neighbor of theirs, and that that they want to destroy Israel, which is ridiculous. It could not be further from the truth. It's actually the other way around. Israel would like to destroy them. But so yeah, this is the main issue I'd been wanting to cover. So that's what I've been addressing at the top of the hour, and it really is important, no matter how these developments turn out, that we do get all this information out there so people are aware of what actually happened and what led up to these things. It does so much in shedding light on who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, to those who might be unsure or getting incorrect information. And I had just been mentioning the justification for all these wars that we are told how we look at our towns and cities. We look at the disrepair of the streets. We look at the vacant businesses. We look at the amount of people asking for spare change. And, we just speak to our friends and neighbors and relatives, and notice how it's not that unique to where we're living either. I mean, this is not the country that it was in 1950s. Even then, we were surviving off the wars that we had engaged in every so often to keep things going for the bankers, But I mean, at least as far as the state of this country, it was still continually on its way up, And now we're seeing even here, one of the countries that other people notoriously come to for a better life is no longer keeping those standards. And this continuous war, ever since 1991, I'd say, since we went into Iraq in 1991, we've been on this very slow ramp up to World War III, this very slow, gradual, perpetual state of war. And therefore, wartime economy, wartime budget, wartime expectations for living conditions and cities and towns and roads, businesses. I mean, I see a lot of this as planned, World Wars I and II worked out so well. Why not have a third one that stretches out in such a subtle, gradual way? Half the people don't realize you're at war, and the other half, are just used to it as a constant way to be. But the attitude towards globalism in the minds of the upcoming generations is what's really going to make or break the direction this planet moves toward, I see that as one of the most prolific issues we face right now, to determine the future of Earth and humanity's place on it. The attitude that people, whether they embrace this globalism or whether they reject it, to maintain local autonomy, freedom, control. This really will be the deciding factor, because the direction everything is moving with centralized corporations and media and just the financial wealth getting more and more concentrated as well into a smaller amount of groups, individuals. And then, of course, the amount of dependence and interdependence the globalism tries to push, It was the best thing Russia could have had for it when it was forced, due to trading sanctions, become more self-reliant. It has only strengthened Russia in recent times to have built upon this self-reliance that they were actually already rather prepared for that matter. But I mean, if every nation were forced to do the same a little bit, well, that would be the biggest fear for the globalists that they could possibly imagine. I mean, keeping everyone interdependent on everyone else for various means, for what they require, both their food production and various other products, and just complete centralization of each type of product to a different region than your own. You have to go to all these other regions for all the things you use in daily life. If everyone can produce everything locally, that takes the power away from those who would have it over you. So, I mean, yeah, we need to get this across really to the youth, that anti-globalism is synonymous with freedom and emancipation and, self-determination. And those are very good and important things, I mean, along with this globalism comes this sort of collectivist view. I mean, at the same time, there are a lot of debates regarding hyper-individuality, which can tear people apart. A lot of people suggest that Europeans have a hyper-developed quest internally for this individuality, which to some extent becomes the long-term downfall of a lot of our civilizations. Like when you think of the more practical means of making a living, for example, to maintain infrastructures and provide services, or when you think of like the more artistic and entrepreneurial alternatives that seem to express the individual. Well, those seem to also, though, go against the core support structure of maybe your family, maybe extended to a bit of friends and neighbors of immediate community for some people. But, it makes people branch out a lot more, relocate a lot more often, spread finances, separate to a lot more individuals rather than a large family unit of wealth that some might accumulate. These heirloom dynastic sort of families that are more like businesses. These are the ones that are actually able to sustain in the long term and can be the biggest threats actually to a larger system. But it may be that we need a bit of a middle ground. But the biggest danger that I can see for the upcoming generations in the immediate future here is definitely that we can't get so sold on this globalism that we lose our identity, our freedom, wind up in a totalitarian society with just people conditioned into it who don't know anything else, don't even know any alternatives that they could miss. So, I really do believe that local, tribal, national sort of values are a strong way to fight this globalism, and we can't allow propaganda to demonize such principles and beliefs. I don't know, belief is perhaps not the best choice of word. Principle or something you can hold to, because you can easily let go if more information is presented where you might alter it. We don't want to have anything that we really have to believe, because that has a cult-like reference. It can be attached to it, It seems like the Hillary supporters were so filled with belief, that she was their God candidate, It was very much a cult thing that went past any sort of logic or reason. So we have to be careful about the whole concept of belief. I'd say don't want to use it in such a strong stroke of the brush, but really getting back to these war agendas and war hawks, I do fear Trump's naivety. He's very naive. Coming from the world of business, a lot of people do tend to compromise ultimately in business transactions. They'll set a really high goal going into negotiations and work their way down to something they can be okay with still profiting from. And the other will do the same. Everyone can be happy. But in the world of politics, it can be very, very much more extreme, spiteful, childish, really, in an all or nothing, spiteful sort of manner. And I don't think Trump was prepared for that. I think Trump went in expecting the world of politics to be very similar to the world of business, where, you are a man of your word, so that people will continue to work with you. You do the things you say you were going to do. You're completely straightforward with people. You're willing to negotiate, and you're not worried that it's a sign of weakness. You're being able to compromise. And I don't think he's realizing that there is a strong amount of maturity and a lot of the qualities we associate with adulthood that are related to the business world that have no place in politics. Politicians, these are usually people who grew up in wealthy, privileged families who were able to crash the car or have a date rape in their teenage years and get away with it because of their parents' influence in the community. If you've seen the film W, it's a little bit of an eerie insight into how these people can grow up. And that film, I think, it does a good job of letting you just peer in a bit to a way that these people can live. And it really does lack maturity. There's a lot of childishness when you have such privilege that goes along with it. These people are used to getting their way, are very much bored with things because of how much is given to them and how much they can afford, where they can't help but, compete in a childish, spiteful, all or nothing manner just to entertain themselves. Maybe perhaps the most intellectual and humane among the privileged have higher, more noble, altruistic centers for their existence. But I mean, on average, I mean, come on, I'm speaking of just the average person out there who has been exposed to such as their lifestyle growing up. They're not going to be filled with virtuous, admirable, trustworthy, mature qualities, basically. And so I think that's the biggest issue for Trump, and also, of course, I think he believed too much of what the corporate media has said, in his past. I think it was a bit of a shock for him realizing just how much we are lied to. I don't think he realized the full scope of it until he came into office, started getting more involved with a lot of the media, and then it seems he started seeing the differences. He clearly has biases toward the independent media, where he does appreciate, even if he doesn't have the best choices. I mean, he's with Breitbart, who's almost mainstream and so pro-Israel that, I could very easily have him do without that influence. But and then even Alex Jones in InfoWars has been treated quite well at the White House, and compared to MSNBC and CNN, you really can't criticize. But the amount of people who are war hawks around him, and yes, the amount of pro-Israel people, even the people who supposedly are far right, like this Steve Bannon, Breitbart, Trump has appointed. He's, like I said, he's so pro-Israel. What's the point in even calling him right wing at all? Because I mean, Israel's right wing is such a hypocrisy and double standard. I mean, look how they are to the Palestinians. I mean, they've been on good terms with selling weapons to South Africa. Have a similar apartheid themselves to what South Africa has, for that matter. That's really a horrible ideology that's being spread there in the Middle East, and so we have a lot of people, of course, who have always been embedded in U.S. politics, though, who are hardliner Israel firsters, and we have that that we're not going to see Trump getting away from. I mean, there's only so much we can expect to see change in one administration. But I think he's made a lot of things apparent. A lot more people are becoming aware of the lies of the media because of Trump. I think that the amount that he's bringing other topics to the table, he's even getting more people talking about Sweden. These are good things. So he's shaking things up, and he clearly is not the establishment's choice. No matter how much he might be still convinced to go to war, he's definitely shaking a lot of things up, and he's doing a lot of good things, getting a lot of people talking about good things. But yeah, we do need him pushed away from these war agendas, and it would be good for him to have advisors who weren't so pro-war, as it really does seem to be all financial, as always, and also, of course, a bit of the international relationships that I've been going into detail about fall into play as well. Well, I got a little better half of an hour left here. I don't really want to stick to war and negative topics for the whole show here, but I did want to bring up and explain my my analyses, at least of some of these issues, because it is important for us to know all of the factors that led up to whatever does develop. As always, I am inviting you guys to call in tonight. I don't know how many people have been sticking with the show tonight. A lot of people, when I have a guest on, I'm still trying to book some future people that just a little hard to arrange for at the moment. And I apologize for those who don't appreciate so many shows with me covering solo all the material. But if anyone would like to call in tonight, I'd like to hear from you. You don't have to have much to say. Just whatever your reason. Just want to say hi. Please give us a call here. It's 714-598-3125. That number again, 714-598-3125. And, just let me know what you're thinking on some of these topics, or just, say hi. Let me know what exposed you to the show and station. I'd, like to hear from whomever would be up for giving a call tonight. As far as some of the other events that I've seen in recent passing, well, we have had, I think most people by now have heard about billionaire banker David Rockefeller's passing. This was at the age of 101. So, even if he, maybe wasn't in the looking in the best of shape near the end there, just to live to 101 shows they certainly have some pretty decent medicine that is reserved for the elite, those with enough money to get whatever is not available to the average person. They said it was congestive heart failure, and this was on Monday that he died. We just received word since then that his son had died in a small plane crash. Now, I haven't really confirmed that with multiple sources, but it is interesting timing. Right after the father dying, I don't know if someone didn't want certain power or control of certain assets to go to this son, perhaps. Perhaps he wasn't on board with some of the father's agendas with various global issues. But no matter, he's not really worth us giving too much of the spotlight to. I did want to just add that in spite of all of the war that we had been exposed to, it's never too late to start turning away from all of this. Of course, I think if enough people wake up to the propaganda, it'd be a great chain reaction that stops us from tolerating so much manipulation leading to these wars. So I think that this election season, and even what Trump has been pointing out since the presidency began for him, exposing a lot of the corporate media's lies more in such a public front as internationally even speaking. A lot of people are following Trump, not just in this country. And, he's bringing up the issue of, well, whether or not we are being lied to by our media so often. It's only going to have a good result, really. So I think the people of the earth are becoming a more and more formidable presence for the would-be empire of oligarchs who would like to maintain control and all of the wealth. So I do want to say that I'm trying to keep things positive in the way I'm referencing them. I think knowledge is power, and people will get away with less and less the wiser their audience becomes. We have had a lot of interesting pushes, though, from the establishment regarding attempts toward censorship lately. I know California right now has been trying to make it a crime to have basically independent media website without having approval from the state. So, this is really entering Orwellian territory now. I mean, that's just for one state, but if it were to continue, that would be a very, very detrimental thing. I mean, it's interesting how they would choose California, but it just seems like it's the state that can tolerate such extreme leftist behavior. Historically, why not, right? But I mean, the opinions politically, they can express there, of course, it containing Hollywood, and of course the exposure of the media through those channels. A lot of people get very influenced by what celebrities have to say. So it's definitely understandable that it would be a target for this sort of thing. We've had a lot of interesting deaths of doctors once again recently. There's a story reported on a number of doctors who discovered cancer enzymes in vaccines had all been found murdered. Now, this is several holistic doctors have all been found dead due to apparent suicides. Now, come on. I mean, you're going to tell me the same time period, a bunch of different holistic doctors who had discovered cancerous enzymes all decided that they're just getting really depressed and need to take their own lives at the same time period as one another. It's just complete coincidence there, It's like all of the banker deaths we've been seeing in the last couple of years. The medical community is now speechless due to the timing of their deaths, is what this article is here saying. Based on the fact they were all researchers working on a breakthrough cure for cancer. Now, we all know that the Cancer Treatment Centers of America and, all of these treatments with chemotherapy and, just all the other prescriptions, machines, medications for that industry. I mean, it's billions of dollars per year. It's an extraordinary threat if you were to have a cure for this. And, well, we had, for one, renowned autism specialist, Dr. James Jeffrey Bradstreet, researching the enzyme prior to his death. His body was discovered floating in North Carolina River with a single gunshot wound to the chest. Okay. So, we can see, a lot of times, I think, right on the surface, what the agendas really are. A lot of these have happened in the last few years. I mean, it depends. It varies a bit what the topic was for the doctors and their research. But I mean, I've heard a lot of these sort of cases where people try to come out regarding something or another that's a threat to the pharmaceutical industry or medical industry. And, we see them die very shortly thereafter. And you'll hear a story about it, and then, everyone will just forget about it. And a lot of times of course, corporate media won't even cover these incidents. But it really is basically a reminder, that we really can't take the word of the medical community, and certainly the pharmaceutical industry, who's whispering in their ear like the worst devil's advocate. We always have to do our own research, multiple sources, doctors, and yes, very much the holistic sort of methods and alternatives do need to be looked into, because we have been programmed to believe that that holistic, herbal, natural sort of medicinal remedies are, we've been conditioned to equate that with ineffective or just something mild and that won't actually do something properly. I mean, that's how much we've been conditioned by the synthetic pharmaceutical industry of poisons. We've had a large amount of censorship, though, on not just with the murders of these doctors, but in a large amount of just assertions from both local areas like California and noticed a lot of increase in Europe as well. I mean, not just classic issues of contempt, such as well, of course, everyone is well aware of places where there are laws against the research into the accounts of the Holocaust, World War II. But I mean, the vaccine sort of industry censorship, it's been almost as strong lately, and the immigration is even more so. And the amount of perception that is taken into account regarding letting any information out about immigrants, about ethnicity in general, has really been ramped up. There's starting to be just more and more issues that people aren't allowed to speak freely about. And now, of course, we've had this ridiculous double standards in a lot of the recent debates in Washington. Like, I mean, we've had the Trump wiretapping issue that I was covering recently, and that, of course, is being discredited by the corporate media. They're saying, oh, you can't believe Trump. He doesn't know what he's talking about, this and that. But then they'll make these claims of Russia, Russia conspiring with Trump, Russia hacking the election. Absolutely no proof. I mean, there were pathetic results from the culmination to all of this that we had in Congress this week. It was on Monday, and they opened up with opening statements, making it sound as if things were figured out and settled, that Russia did indeed conspire and all of this sort of thing. But then you listen to it, for anyone who stuck around and didn't just listen to the sound bite and walk away, and you find that they have no information whatsoever. It's just all complete speculation that, we think Russia would have had to have done this because, of course, all of America loves Hillary, and how could Hillary not have won the election? Russia must have hacked. I mean, so, we don't have any evidence whatsoever as of now, but just the idea that there's an ongoing investigation, I mean, come on. It's Russia, and they're bad guys, and, of course they would do something like this, and of course they would want someone like Trump in there instead of our beloved Hillary, who all of America must worship and surely must have voted for her. It was just complete spectacle. I mean, there's zero evidence related to Russia, and even just the secondary implication of Russia having negative intentions whatsoever is always in the propaganda, you know. So I mean, it was really a flop for those who were trying to succeed in connecting Russia. That's what everyone who has made an analysis of this week's spectacle has surmised. But you know, they're not going to give up. It seems, you know, that this is just anti-Russia, anti-Trump, and it basically comes down to just anyone who's anti-globalism. You know, that seems to be the uniting factor here, you know, as far as what all the corporate media and just political establishments and corporations and bankers all seem to agree on. So I think Putin is a leader for the people, and Trump is seeing him as one option. Oh, what that was. Sorry, that was me, folks. But I think Trump is seeing Putin and how Putin behaves as a leader, and he's seeing that as one option. He's seeing that as one direction he can take. So we really do, need to hope that he continues and realizes that anti-globalism is ultimately, you know, what he can help contribute toward, you know, perhaps his greatest contribution in his term. Because as I said, we can only expect so much from any one person. I would like to see him take a harder stance against the war hawks, against the pro-Israel lobbyists. But first and foremost, I mean, you know, he has to stop being so defensive, get a little more offensive. I think that would help him. You know, he's not used to the way politicians can be so underhanded. And yeah, you know, I think he has to realize that what they're purposely doing is keeping him busy with responding, you know, reacting, you know, keeping him distracted with having to just counter everything that they propose. It would be a lot more to his advantage if he were just to start on the offensive really more and see the ways that he needs to make more changes that'll be effective as far as the people who are appointed, as far as the policies, as far as what he can initiate during his term. I mean, the whole Obamacare thing now seems to be getting repackaged as more of the same. You know, it seems like so far the gentleman who's been handling that has something to present to us, and he's just using his name at the moment. I think they're calling it Ryan Care, and it's basically not really changing much at all. You know, it's still not in the best interest of any of the people who were getting hit with these sky-high deductibles. In a lot of cases, people are getting triple what they had previously been paying in the realities out there. But these are still just focusing on favoring the corporations. They're not really changing anything to fix the disaster that it's been. But yeah, they're just trying to act like they, you know, did enough of some sort of change to get someone to agree to, okay, well, we'll see what happens now. But we do have to, I think, get more involved at a local level if we want to change a lot of these sort of things. We're past the point, I think, of expecting on a federal level everything to repair itself. There is a lot of corruption and ultimately, yeah, the best thing would be for this Orwellian United States to implode on a governmental level. They're already tearing each other apart. In Washington, it's become so childish as it is. Anyone who's been keeping up lately, I'd like to see that play out to its natural conclusion, and we can rebuild with the same principles of the Constitution and Bill of Rights that started this nation, without straying from them so much next time. I mean, a lot of the laws recently that had been loosened regarding how much any one person can own of the media, regarding the additional advantages the corporations can have now being allowed the legal status of personhood. These things were extremely harmful in the last couple of decades, more than people can realize. And these are the kind of policies that Trump could really push back on. If he really wanted to test the waters, I would say eliminate the Federal Reserve. It would be, the greatest thing he could do. But, I don't know if he'd be willing to do something so extreme, especially if he is aware of the potential consequences for those in the past who've done such. But certainly, some of these other policies I mentioned at least can be altered in his term. Those would probably be some of the best things here at home that he could improve upon. And I think all of us, though, need to stop a lot of the double standards with a lot of our perceptions. And this perception of globalism is something I'd like everyone to talk about more with people they know. Because, I do see it already. I see a lot of people who are like talking maybe on social media or whatever, and someone will bring up being against globalism, and they'll say, "Oh, how could you even tolerate people like that?" I mean, the same way that racist is a buzzword, and a trigger word, this which really is taken out of context. The same anti-globalism sort of concept. I think we need to set people straight on really what globalism is and is not. Because, is that me again? Sorry if people are hearing these buzzing sounds. I really don't know why I'm getting such unexpected actions from my CPU here. But I would like to see more people just discuss perception of these things that affect our everyday life. I think that less centralization is always a good thing. And we need to look at how that is true in nature, outside of what humans have interacted with. If you need evidence of what is really the way things tend to be. But well, I guess I'm not going to get any callers again today. One more time, 714-598-3125. The number again, 714-598-3125. Someone out there might want to give a call. We got about 10 minutes left here of the show. Be an ideal time for you to just say, "Hey, I'm one of the people who still listening in even this week. And I think such and such." I think a lot of the other listeners too would be curious to know who else is tuning in. Who else is so fed up with with everything out there that they're listening to beyond the Matrix. But no, I do appreciate everyone who regularly tunes in. I know not all the topics are to everyone's liking as much as every other topic, and as I said, some people may specifically tune in when we have guests, especially a night like tonight. You know, I'm not sure if everyone appreciated all of the directions we've taken things, but well, that could be one good way to give feedback. You know, a reason to call in. You know, perhaps you could let me know what you think of some of the things we discussed tonight. Speak to you. You know, how they are interpreted by you. Let's see, we are going to have, I'm not sure if it'll be, I think it might be 2 weeks from tonight. Going to have a very interesting gentleman coming on. He's given a lot of speeches on the topics of, globalism versus nationalism. And he has a lot of interesting views that have been established. He's going to talk about how some have been proposing we deal with these ongoing issues in Europe, because it does seem like we have gotten to a point, some are saying of no return, really. I mean, even if a lot of the European countries who are overtaxed by the immigration and just can't deal with it, they can't sustain their culture, their society the way they had, and, you know, prevent the crime and just decline of infrastructure, without focusing on their native population again. Even if they were to decide this, and decide to send these people back entirely, that have come in the last couple of years from a lot of these European nations, it seems what we are hearing is that a lot of the nations of origin would refuse to accept the immigrants back into their country, even if they were deported due to serious crimes. So, I mean, the question will be where to send these people. It'll be even more difficult to convince someone to send them to some third area, of course, if the homeland rejects them. And, it would just open the door for even more bashing of the whole premise of doing this. But, a lot of these countries really are overwhelmed, and it really does seem to be by design. This seems to be a mechanism of the globalists to dispossess ultimately a lot of the European nations by just taking apart their identity. It seems identity politics is going to be the battleground of the next generation. It's going to be the deciding factor in this totalitarian push of globalism. Will it succeed or will we overcome it? Because our identity politics relates to a lot of these things, to ethnicity, nationalism, tribalism, local empowerment, and group strategy, to empire, oligarchs, the elite who wish to impoverish the many. A lot of these topics, though, are going to be discussed by this guest I'm going to be having on. And as I said, I don't know about next week. I think hopefully I'll get him on about 2 weeks from tonight. And yeah, he has been a brilliant speaker on a lot of these issues that we're starting to face here more and more. And every country seems to be at a different point with it. I know that we've just had an extraordinary amount of immigration in Sweden, in Denmark. We've been getting a lot in Germany, in Belgium, France, England are some of the key areas. I haven't heard too much about, like Greece or Italy. I'm mostly hearing about their financial difficulties there. It's like it seems they were already in too dire financial straits due to the EU tyranny to even be burdened with too much immigration, perhaps, or maybe we're just not hearing about it because it's overshadowed by these larger issues. But it's been a complete media blackout still in France as well. They've still been in an extraordinary state of resistance to empire, with riots. This all has to do with the monetary system. The bankers trying to keep us enslaved, and it's been a genuine revolt. As opposed to something like the French Revolution, which was more political. This is really about money and just means of living, of making a living, standards of living, really. Our more austerity is also something that Greece is absolutely not willing to tolerate, and they're at a breaking point. Perhaps even more so than France at the moment. If you do more of a search into the, and of course be sure to check out more of the independent, more trusted websites that you've perused. But the recent developments in Greece are that they're not giving up. Basically, we have peasants, fighting with the local riot police, and that sort of thing. I have to really look at the most recent updates. But yeah, both in Greece and France, it's really all about pushes toward more austerity that the people are just not willing to tolerate. I don't know. I think we should admire their resistance. And that could be a more widespread phenomenon. Well, looks like we're just about at the end of the program here. Thank you, everyone who has been tuned in, who welcomes, whatever might be the topic. Even when I don't have guests here, I try to just include a lot of relevant issues of the day and my perception and take on them. Please do feel free to call in future. I'd like to get some more opinions of my listeners when I can. And once again, please donate to Truthcatradio to help keep us running. If you go to our support page, we have a PayPal, so it should be no problem to contribute securely with whatever you could. We greatly appreciate. I guess that'll just about wrap things up for tonight here. Well, please tune in again next week, folks. Thank you for listening. Stick around for Stephen D. Kelly with the Stephen D. Kelly Show. And have a good night. Transcend the construct. Regards.